Good evening. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live streaming video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the application, that is, before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary-Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca and you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. The phone number is also posted on your screen below the live stream at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. When you call in, staff will ask your name, item number that you wish to address, and your telephone number. Further instructions will be provided to you to call back to join the video conference. When the chair of the committee polls the interested parties, the Secretary-Treasurer will unmute you when it is time for you to speak. The applicant or agent will be given the opportunity to briefly explain to the committee the basis of their application, answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for a presentation. You will need to state your name and address for the record, and any submissions beyond 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for each presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will also be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with a further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by interested parties, answer questions from the committee members, and if the applicant or agent has any concerns found in staff report, particularly with any proposed conditions, this is your opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end all the discussion. Any person desiring a notice of decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary-Treasurer. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on the list that is used by the local planning appeal tribunal for giving of any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consent to the applicant, agent, and any other person who has filed a written request for such notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the local planning appeal tribunal. The last day to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and any other people participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. We have one regret for this evening, Mr. John Hardcastle. Do I have any declarations of pecuniary interests? I see none. Thank you. Requests for a deferral or withdrawal of applications. We don't have any of those, do we?
Madam Chair, we don't have up to now.
Okay, perfect. So then we will proceed with the first item on our agenda, which is CAV 046 of 2020 at 1472 Constance Drive. Do we have anyone other than the agent, John Wilmont, on standby to speak to this application? I ask that anyone watching the live stream that would like to speak to the application CAV 046 of 2020 at 1472 Constance Drive to call in at this number, 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. The phone number is also posted below the live stream on oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call, and when you call, further instructions will be provided to you to join the video conference.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Hi, this is, good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This is Darren Smith. I'm calling from, I live at 1472 Constance Drive in regards to the CAVA 0462020.
Okay, you are a neighbor and an interested party, correct, Mr. Smith?
I am actually the homeowner and the one applying for the minor variance. Sorry, I was having trouble connecting.
Oh, okay, very well. So you will be speaking to the matter, not Mr. Wilmot.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, very well. We've canvassed for anyone who'd like to speak to the application. This is your time, sir. I know this is it's a proposed one-story addition to an existing dwelling, and you have a residential floor area request for minor variance. Go ahead, sir.
We're asking for a minor variance on the floor area. We live in a story and a half. We're expanding our second story to have 4 bedrooms and extra bathrooms as our family grows. We have 3 daughters. We're asking for 1.48% over the floor area ratio. The style of the house fits right in with the neighborhood. I have lived in the house with my family for 10 years, and we'll continue to live here, and so we want to fit right in with the neighborhood.
Very well, and we note that the staff is in support of your application. Do you have anything further to add? Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Smith at this time? Any items of clarification? I see none. Mr. Smith, just give me one moment. Jasmine, no one has called in for this application, correct?
I do have one phone call, and I can see only as a phone on my screen. Somebody raised a hand, and I'm just asking, like, I don't know the name or anybody, like, it's not addressed. So you can
I think that was we were having trouble connecting, so we actually did call in as well.
Okay.
Okay. I can give you a minute to double check before we take the matter into committee, and we can make a decision if Mr. Smith is satisfied with his submission and he's ready for us to take the matter into committee.
I am, yes. Thank you for having me, and please go ahead and...
Jasmine, do you want to verify just to be sure that no one else is on hold for this item?
To Madam Chair, anyone who wants to speak has to raise the hand, but I can't see any hands right now raised.
Okay, very well. Committee, if we are ready, we can take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Flemington, go ahead.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit and having reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as the town's written staff report, which I do note is in favor of the application. Also, having taken into account the comments presented by the applicant this evening, and noting that there was no public present to speak against the application, I am prepared to make a motion that the application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the test of the Planning Act, and I would like to include the conditions that the addition be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated May 5th, 2020, and as well our standard condition that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, none opposed. Thank you. Your application has been approved.
Thank you very much.
The next item on our agenda is CAV 047 of 2020 at 1204 Cynthia Lane. I ask that any members of the public who are interested to speak to this application call in at 905-185-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call, and when you call in, further instructions will be provided for you to join the video conferencing. Good evening. We have the agent present. You need to unmute yourself.
Please unmute yourself.
There you go.
Yes, I'm the agent, Patrick Lucky, 7283 Bendigo Circle.
Very well. This is a proposed new dwelling with a two-story. You had previously gotten approval for a similar variance, but it has elapsed since then because of our 2-year condition.
Yes, that's right.
Do you have a presentation for us this evening?
I did upload one if you would like to see it. If not, I can just address it verbally if necessary.
Okay. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Lucky at this time or items of clarification? Mr. Telawski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if the presentation he uploaded includes a 3D rendering.
It does. It does have 2 3D renderings, one from the front and one from the back.
Okay.
We
can upload the presentation and go through it to give people a chance to call in if someone is interested in speaking to the matter. Maybe
Sure.
IT can pull that up. There we go.
So this is a very contemporary design, which is what this is a purpose-built project specifically for the property owner, and this design is very similar to the design that he had approved from 2016. It was under a different architect at that time, but we've taken over the project, and it's and essentially incorporated some of the same elements from the previous approved design. If you can go to the next slide. This is just the site plan showing the location. It's a complete rebuild. There's an existing in-ground pool at the back yard that's trying to be retained. Next slide, please. And this is an overlay of the 2016 building outline. It's essentially a very similar shape, footprint. However, we have decided to move the building a little bit closer to the front lot line, as the adjacent property to the left on the screen, since the 2016 approval, constructed a new 2-story dwelling closer to the lot line than what they had previously. So given the averages, we were able to move the building a little bit closer to the front lot line and give a little bit more relief to the rear yard. Next slide, please. These are just the ground floor plans. This is the proposed. Next slide, please. And just the 2016 approval. That's the second floor. Next slide, please. And again, the 2016 outline, which is almost virtually identical. Next slide, please. This is the front elevation. The materials are shown as a combination of white stucco and stone. However, the owner, now that we're doing some further investigation, might be willing to, or might be looking at doing some aluminum composite panels as opposed to stucco. But the same contemporary kind of white look is what is his kind of desired taste. Next slide, please. And this is just an overlay of the 2016 building outline. The 2016 had this kind of strange butterfly roof where it sloped towards the back and sloped towards the front. You'll see it in the side elevation. The owners decided to eliminate that concept. Next slide, please. So this is one of the side elevations, just showing the combination of glass, stone, and white stucco or white panels. Next slide, please. And this gives you an idea of that previously approved butterfly roof that has been revised in this application. Still maintains the height well under the maximum 9 meters. We're at 7.7 meters. Next, please. And then I just continued with the other side elevation. Those are obviously window wells into the basement, which are contained within the prescribed setbacks. Next slide, please. And the rear elevation, which is predominantly glass, overlooking the backyard in-ground pool. And last slide. And that's the rear rendering. So I think Michael was wanted to see the rendering. So if you could go back to the first slide, was the three-dimensional of the first of the front elevation. That's it. So the garage is set back a little bit from the main front of the building. The front garage door is set back about 1 or 1.5 meters. And the front setback proposed is 5. Right now we have it at 5.8 meters, and that's a little bit more than the average of the two adjacent dwellings. And that's it for my presentation. Thanks.
Very well, thank you. Members, are there any further questions or items of clarification, Mr. Lucky, at this time? Okay, I see none. If we haven't received any calls by now, we can take this matter into committee. Can we just confirm?
We haven't received any phone call up to now.
Okay, perfect. So if you're satisfied, we're ready to take the matter into committee. Oh, Mr. Telawski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, first of all, I'd like to thank the applicant for providing the renderings. I find it, the style of house particularly helpful, both the committee and the community, to be able to visualize what's being proposed. Having said that, Madam Chair, I'd move that this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of Planning Act. I think it's very consistent with the various styles and size of houses that are being built on Cynthia and Melvin in the immediate area. I would note that there's no opposition from the public on this file, and I would make that approval subject to 2 conditions: that development proceed in general accordance with the drawings dated April 13th, 2020, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Telawski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? See none. All those in support? None opposed. Thank you. Your application has been approved.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You as well. Next item on our agenda is CAV 048 of 2020 at 2333 and 2327, 2343 and 2355, 2377 Khalsa Gate. Again, it's Khalsa Gate. The number to call if you're interested in speaking to this item is 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call. When you call in, further instructions will be provided for you to call back to join the video conference. Thank you. who is the agent for this?
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Michelle Charco. I'm a planner with Goldberg Group, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. I am the agent.
Hello, Ms. Charco. And this is for a temporary sales office that you are planning to erect on this property, correct?
That's correct. And so the rear yard setback is actually a site-specific bylaw requirement that's required for the building that we're proposing to build. But the temporary sales office has to comply as well.
Okay. Are there any questions or items of clarifications of Ms. Charco at this time? I see none. Don't believe there's any letters of support or opposition for this item. Has anyone called in for this item?
Madam Chair, we haven't received any phone calls up to now.
Okay, very well. This is pretty straightforward. Can we take the matter into committee? Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Ms. Murray. You have to unmute yourself, though.
Keep forgetting that.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written staff report, which I note that the staff is in support of, having also taken into account that there are no written or oral objections from the public at this time that have been presented, I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all 4 tests under the Planning Act. I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application for variance subject to the following conditions. And those conditions are that the sales trailer be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated May 1st, 2020, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well, thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, none opposed. Your application has been approved. Thank you, Ms. Charco.
Great, thank you very much. Take care.
Bye. All right. Application CAV 049 of 2020 at 153 Claxton Drive. Once again, any members of the public who are interested to speak to this application CAV 049 of 2020 at 153 Claxton Drive are asked to call the number 905-815-6095. The number once again is 905-815-6095. It is also posted on the screen below the live stream at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call, and when you do call in, further instructions will be provided for you to call in and join the video conference. Okay. Mr. Wilmot?
Sorry, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Craig Esposti. I'm an architect with John Wilmot Architect, and we're the agent for the owner.
Sorry, can you repeat your last name again?
Yep, it's Esposti.
Esposti.
E-S-P-O-S-T-I.
Okay, I just want to pronounce it correctly.
Oh, no, thank you. And we're the agent for the owner.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Esposti. We do note that we have 3 letters of support from neighbors, and this is a proposed new dwelling with an RFA for the home as well as the garage RFA. You have a presentation for us?
I can. If you'd like, I did submit the drawings just from the original submission, so I'd be happy to explain the variances if you want, or I can just answer the questions the committee might have.
Okay. Given the fact that we do have letters of support, I just want to give the members of the public a chance to speak to the item should they choose to. So if you want, you can just take us through your presentation very quickly, and at that time, the members of the committee can ask any items of clarification while we give the public time to call in
Certainly. So basically, we're seeking two variances. The first variance is for an increase in the residential floor area ratio. We're requesting a ratio of 32.5%, 2.26% of which is to permit the enclosure of an outdoor ground floor one-story patio space with a folding glass door system. If you could go to the next slide, I think it shows in the rear. You can see that it's open with a one-story covered area over the patio. And I believe the next slide should show it closed, so you can see the difference between open and closed, but having little impact either way in terms of the coverage or impact on the neighbors as it's centrally located. And it's largely bound on three sides by the walls of the dwelling, concealing the view from neighboring properties. The remaining 1.24% to allow for a modest increase in floor area for desired interior spaces. We made an effort to keep the lot coverage down and keep the setbacks maintained to help mitigate any impact on the neighboring properties. The second variance is for an increase in the garage area. That's to permit a tandem space, which is generally internal to the dwelling. It's accessed from a two-car garage door from the street and doesn't really contribute to the garage as a dominant feature in any way. And we feel that those are minor and appropriate development for the site. And as I said, I'd be happy to answer any questions of the committee members.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Spasti. Members, are there any items of clarification or questions? Ms. Murray, go ahead.
Just wondering if we could see a picture of the garage, please, and thank you.
Of the garage in floor plan or in elevation? I know if you can pull the elevation back up, there's the front perspective view, showed it from the street. Did the previous, there it is.
Thank you.
It's a two-car garage door, single door.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or items of clarification? If we can pull out of the presentation screen so I can see the speakers, thank you. Okay. Any items of clarification or further questions of Mr. Spasti? Okay, I see none. No one has called with request to speak to this application, correct?
Correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, then if Mr. Spasti, if you are satisfied, we can take this matter into committee now.
Okay, thank you.
Very well. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Flemington, go ahead, sir.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit and reviewing the applicant's written submission, as well as noting that the staff written report was in favor of this application, also noting that there were 3 letters of support of the application and noting that there was no one speaking against it, I would like to move a motion in support of the application as applied for. And I would like to note 2 conditions. One, that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated May 29th, 2020. And the other standard condition that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued.
Very well, thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, none opposed. Thank you. Your application has been approved, sir.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is CAV 050 of 2020 at 145 Sibylla Drive. If anyone is interested in speaking to this application, CAV 050 of 2020 at 145 Sibylla Drive, we ask you to call 905-815-6095. Once again, the number is 905-815-6095. And this number is also posted on the screen below the live stream at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call. Once you've called in, further instructions will be provided to you to join the video conference. Okay. We have Mr. Kieran as the agent. Mr. Kieran, are you with us?
I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I think I have my camera on, but is it not?
I think it's the same thing as last time. You need to opt for it in the. There we go.
Okay. Good evening, members of the committee and Madam Chairperson. My name is Joris Kieran. I'm the agent for the applicant, and my office is located at 11 Bronte Road, Unit 31 in Oakville.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Kieran. This is a proposed new construction of a two-story dwelling and with a lot coverage variance.
That is correct. It's a fairly straightforward application, a small lot coverage overage. I do have a brief presentation that I would like to go through.
Go ahead, sir. We do note that you have 7 letters of support on hand.
Correct. I was going to mention that. Thank you for covering that off. So that's a good indication. If you could start with page 1, please. Yes, thank you. Okay. This is basically to demonstrate that the overage in lot coverage is really attributable to the rear and front covered porches. And without those covered porches, we would actually comply. We would be under the 25% allowable. And then also just to point out that we did move that rear covered porch to the middle of the building versus its original location was to the right, which would have had a little bit more impact on the neighboring property. But now it's been reduced in depth, and now it's located closer to the middle of the dwelling in the rear yard. And the last thing here is just that just a reminder that the residential floor area is actually under the maximum allowed. Oftentimes, where these applications they have both maxed out and asking for one to go over, but in this case, we're actually under on the floor area and only seeking the variance for the lot coverage for these 2 porches. Next slide, please. This is just the first floor plan view, again, just indicating 2 porches. It's highlighted. Unfortunately, the highlighting has erased the area that was shown there, but it's just a repeat of what was shown on the site plan, the area of those individual porches. Next slide, which is just the second floor. It's not really relevant here, so we'll go to the next slide, page 4. So this is just a 3D rendering of the house, indicating the 2 areas that we're talking about, front porch. And this is just to demonstrate that it's a, these are open structures, single-story open structures, so that they are pretty minimal as far as massing goes. And that's our rendering is there to demonstrate that. And we don't need to see the last slide. That concludes the presentation.
Very well, thank you. Are there any items of clarification or questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? Okay, I see none. Yasmina, there's no one who has called in for this application, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so Mr. Kieran, if you're satisfied, we can take the matter into committee.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mr. Telawski, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think there's anyone left to call in. The applicant done an excellent job of getting the support of the whole committee by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Having said that, Madam Chair, I would note the subject letters of support, and well, that the area subject to the variance, not only are they single-story open elements, but the single-story edge treatment is carried through much of this house to the reduced second floor, so I don't believe there'll be any impact of the variance. So I would move approval of this application as applied for, finding it meets the four tests of the Planning Act. Make that approval subject to construction in general accordance with the drawings dated June 9th, 2020, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Telawski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? None opposed. Your application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next item on our agenda is CAV 051 of 2020 at 562 Wingrove Crescent. We ask that anyone watching the live stream at this time and would like to speak to this application, call 905-815-6095. Once again, the number is 905-815-6095. The number is also posted on the screen below, the live screen at oakville.ca, and staff will be standing by to take your call. Once you've called in, further instructions will be provided to you to join the video conference. Again, the application number is CAV 051 of 2020 at 562 Wingrove Crescent. Good evening.
Good evening.
We have
committee members. Sorry, I just lost connection there for a moment.
Good evening, Mr. Barrett. Go ahead, state your name and address for the record, please.
Sorry about that. I just lost my connection for a moment. The name
No problem.
is Graham Barrett of 1575 Dundas Street West in Toronto.
Very well. This is a proposed second-story addition to an existing dwelling, correct?
That's correct. This proposal was before this committee on October 22nd of 2019, and it was approved. We had variances for side yard setback at 0.82 meters and garage area at 57 meters squared. Both were existing conditions. An addition was proposed on the existing footprint. No changes to the plans have been made, but an error was caught during the permit process. It would appear the designer used an old site plan from a sunroom company for a reference rather than a legal survey. Seeing as a legal survey isn't a requirement for a minor variance application in Oakville, it was accepted. Turns out the site plan from this sunroom company had an incorrect number for the south side yard setback, which was 0.82 meters. I did send this in with some presentation materials. It's on page 2 with the incorrect side yard setback circled.
So IT will pull that out for us right now.
Thank you. A new survey has been done, and the side yard setback has been correctly identified as 0.73 meters. I'll just wait until that pops up. So, sorry, I just lost my presentation when that went full screen. Just a moment. Okay, so I'm sorry, that is not what I was looking for. I see the survey. Anyhow,
you can ask which page would you like of the material that you've submitted?
Page 2.
Page 2, please. There we go.
Yeah, so that is also not it. It's a 5-page PDF entitled Presentation Materials 1.
They'll pull it up. Bear with us.
Thank you. Thank you. There we go. Nope, this is not it either. And sent in a 5-page document. It had my remarks as the first page, a shot of the original site plan as the second. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. So next page. There we go. That's the original site plan that was used. To apply for this variance, it's from a sunroom company, clearly not a legal survey. So they had the side yard setback existing as 0.82 meters, which was incorrect. A new legal survey was prepared. If you go to the next page, please. That's a cutaway of the current legal survey. That is the same setback. It's 0.73 meters. So the variance was misidentified the first time around. There are no changes to the original proposal other than correcting this side yard setback. I've confirmed with staff that there's no need to get the garage area variance reapproved as it's already been approved. This is still minor in nature. I believe it still passes the 4 tests. The owners have spoken to their adjacent neighbors and informed them of the mistake and obtained fresh letters of support from both. They've been submitted, but they are also included in this document on pages 4, 5, and 6. The owners would very much like to rectify this and continue their building process. And if anything, this is a lesson that even though a legal survey may not be required for a minor variance application in Oakville, it is certainly a good idea to use one when preparing a site plan. So that's all. Thanks for your time.
Very well, thank you. Members, are there any questions of Mr. Barrett at this time or items of clarification? Go ahead, Ms. Murray. Thank you.
Sorry, just a quick question. Sometimes our materials don't print all that well or show up. We have letters of support from 560 Wingrove, letters of support from 568 Wingrove, and 564. Is that correct?
No, I believe they're both from 560. It's Megan and Lane Gardner. They just both members of the household signed letters of support for their neighbors. So it's 560 and 564. So both adjacent.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I see none. Mr. Barrett, there hasn't been anyone who's called in for this application, correct?
Correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, so then we are ready to take the matter into committee if you're satisfied. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit and noting that there was letters of support for the application as applied for by 2 of the neighbors, as well noting that the staff's written report is in support of the application, and noting the presentation, thanking the applicant for just clarifying the error that was made previously. I would like to move a motion in favor of the application as applied for, and note the conditions that the addition be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings, plot date January 31st, 2020, and the standard condition that the approval expires 2 years from the decision date if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. None opposed.
Good. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Right.
Okay. Application CAV 052 of 2020 at 9 West Street. At this time, we'd like interested parties to call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. The number is also posted on your screen below the live stream at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call, and further instructions will be then given for you to join the video conference. Once again, the item before us right now is CAV 052 of 2020 at 9 West Street. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Kieran. Again. You have to unmute yourself.
You think I'd get a hold and hang of it, but no.
We're all in the same boat. It's okay.
Good evening, members of the committee, Madam Chairperson. I'm Joris Kieran, agent for the applicant, 11 Bronte Road, Unit 31 in Oakville.
Very well, thank you. This is a proposed two-story dwelling. We do have late comments from Conservation Halton supporting the application, and we have several letters of support. Go ahead,
Yes.
sir.
Yes, I'm going to do a brief presentation, given that this is a little bit of a somewhat complex application. So if I could get the first slide, which is just the summary of key points, please. I'm looking for, it's a letter, it's titled Summary of Key Points. It's one of the PDFs I sent in. Might be the last one, Yasmina. If it's not available, I can just read it. It's not a problem. Okay, I'll just proceed. The key points really are, one, most of the variances being requested are technical in nature. As a result of what we're doing here is we're essentially replacing the existing dwelling that's there, and we're shifting it slightly, forwards and to the side in order to, make it better fit the lot. Although it is technically a two-story dwelling, it's more of a story and a half, because the second story only goes over about half of the main floor. So just a point of clarification, and that's clear in the massing of the house as well. Point two is all 7 variances are being supported by planning staff, as you are probably aware. The rear yard, east side yard, and front yard setback are being improved under this new proposal compared to the existing dwelling. We have 3 letters of support. Actually, we technically only got 2 physically in. The other neighbor did give us their verbal support, but we didn't actually get a letter, so that's just a slight correction there to that document that I submitted. There's only 3 neighbors, direct neighbors in this case. There's the one on each side, and then there's the one in front. So those are the people that have been kept informed, and we've been talking to them for months. The applicant has, so they're well aware of everything that's been going on, and have given us their support. Lastly, all 7 variants have been labeled on page 1 of this presentation, and I will go over them one by one at this point. So if you can go to page 1 of the submitted material, please. It's a site plan. Okay, so just going through all the variances. There's seven in total. So we just to sort of clarify it for everybody, we've labeled them. So variance 1 is referring to the driveway width. What would be allowed on this property with this frontage would be 6.83 meters. We're asking for slightly more at 7.01. Again, it's just because of the unique nature of this property. We need to create access for the garage itself, and then we need to create access into the little parking area that's in front of the dwelling. We had 2 separate driveways proposed initially, but planning preferred this scenario, so that's what we went with, and it created this variance. Variance 2 is referring to the front yard setback associated with the detached garage. So that is 3.04 meters, whereas 5.7 is required. However, the existing garage that's there now is about 1 meter away from the front yard setback. So this is one of the areas that we're improving on as far as the location of the building. Variance 3, that has to do with the garage projection. It's obvious here that this is a bit of a unique situation. So detached garage in the front. creates this this overage of 10.58 meters. Variance number 4. So that is the side yard setback. So this zone requires 1.2 and 2.4 in this case because we have a detached garage. Normally we'd never run into this because it's always an attached garage, but in this case detached. So the variance number 4 is giving us that variance of 1.21 meters. Variance number 5, we have the rear yard setback, required 7.5. What we're providing is 5.5, and we're going to flip to another slide later, but it'll demonstrate that the existing house is actually closer to the rear property line. So again, this is although it's a variance, it's an improvement over the existing situation. Variance number 6, so that has to do with the the front wall, main wall proportionality, which is a little bit of a convoluted variance, but I'm sure all the members understand it. So basically, we require 50% of that front main wall to be within the minimum max, and this is only 26.91. So that is the variance number 6. And lastly, variance number 7 has to do with the height of the detached garage accessory building. So we can just flip to the page, the next page, slide number. It's page number 2. It says page 4, but it's actually 2. So just very simply indicating the variance for the heights, which has to do with just the architectural, integrity of that building. We feel it looks a lot better with a slightly steeper roof, and it looks more, in keeping with the main dwelling as well. Now we'll go to page 3. So, all right, so I had some highlighting, but I guess that didn't come through. You can see the faded, in the faded lines, you'll see the existing structure. And that's where you can see the front of the garage is a lot closer to the front lot line there, 1 meter. And in the rear, we've actually highlighted it's 4.12 meters is the existing rear yard setback. It's just to demonstrate that we are improving that well. And we'll go to page 4. Didn't come through, but that's the side of the garage, and then the west side of the dwelling. Let's just go to the last page, 5. And that is the rear, and that's where you can see a little bit clearer the that's the 1.5 story, or basically that's the 1-story component of the building, which is about half the building. Half of the dwelling is 1 story, but with vaulted ceilings. That's where the windows are above those doors. It's not a second floor, it's just vaulting. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Very well, thank you for your submission. Are there any questions or items of clarification from Mr. Kieran at this time? Ms. Murray, go ahead.
Actually, it's a question for town staff. I'm hoping they can answer this. And as a matter of interest, how would emergency services arrive at this home and maneuver with the diminished side yard setback? Like I realize it's a unique property, very, very unique, but I'm just trying to understand how that would work.
Yeah, through Madam Chair, since this property is located adjacent to Lake Ontario, fire department staff do comment on the site plan application. However, I'd have to pull up what their comments were. They didn't have any concerns with the variance. So in terms of circulation for emergency purposes, I don't have the direct answer, but I can certainly look it up quickly. Does the committee like to proceed?
Thanks a bunch.
Yeah, no
I can offer some clarification on that as well. sorry, I can offer some clarification on that as well if that's
ahead.
an option. Yeah. So the property is on a laneway, as you've probably seen. So that laneway acts as a small road. The only setback that would affect, I think, emergency vehicle access would be the one that we're improving, which is the front yard setback of the detached garage. I don't think there would be a turnaround opportunity for any kind of emergency vehicle, but I think it's enough for them to get in there. And again, it's a situation that we're improving over the existing condition. There's another house that's further.
So through you, Madam Chair, I looked at the first submission site plan comments, and the comments from Building Services, Fire Prevention stated that the building is a Part 9 house, access provided by West Street, and it just passed through their review. So in terms of the interior circulation around the dwelling, they didn't comment directly on that. They just said that it's in proximity to West Street, so they don't need additional turnarounds for any sort of fire trucks or instruments that they would use.
Okay, very well. Thank you. Is there any other items of clarifications or questions of Mr. Kieran or planning staff? Ms. Murray?
One more question, Madam Chair, for planning staff. We had late submission from Conservation Halton. Are those to be incorporated in the requested conditions?
No, through you, Madam Chair, that would be applicable law. So the applicant would be required to get permits through Conservation Halted as part of the site plan approval process and building permit process.
Thank you.
Very well. Anything further? Ms. Jasmina, we have not received any calls for this application, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Kieran, if you're satisfied, we are ready to take the matter into committee. Mr. Telawski, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A little disappointed in Mr. Kieran's ability to only get 2 letters of support on this application. I don't think we've ever seen a house on the lake that's this small with so many variances. Usually variances because people are trying to overbuild.
That's true.
I'm satisfied, Madam Chair, that 6 out of the 7 variances are technical. 7 to the height of the garage, I don't believe will have an impact. And with that, I would move approval of this application, noting again that there were 2 letters of support, finding that this application meets the 4 tests of Planning Act, make the approval conditional on development proceeding in general accordance with a site plan to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Telawski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay. None approved. Your application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we have you for the next item as well, which is CEV 053-2020 at 532 Sharon Drive. I still have to read the phone numbers one more time for the purposes of this live stream. The phone number to reach us to speak to the matter that is before us today is 053-2020 at 532 Sharon Drive. The phone number to reach us at is 905-815-6095, and it's also being posted on the screen below the live stream at oakville.ca. Staff will be on standby to take your call, and instructions will be given to you at that time to join the video conference. Once again, the number is 905-815-6095. Okay, Mr. Kieran, go ahead, sir. Again, this is a new proposed dwelling.
Correct. A new proposed dwelling, 2-story dwelling. We have. I'm Joris Kieran, by the way, agent for the applicant, 11 Brownie Road, Unit 31 in Oakville. And I have a brief presentation that I will run through. We did reach out to most of the neighbors, and as did the applicant. I was told there was a few letters of support coming, but they never materialized. But what I can tell you is that all the immediate neighbors have been informed of what's going on, and the discussions have been had. So just wanted to mention that. So this is the site plan. My highlighting seems to be coming out a little different than what it is on my end, but we're just highlighting the residential floor area overage. So we're about 14 square meters over what's permitted, which translates into about 150 square feet. I'll go to the next slide, please. Okay, and what we've done here, just for the purposes of clarifying where that extra square footage is living, 5 square meters is sort of spread through the kitchen and breakfast area, the little bit extra space that was wanted there. Second floor master dressing room, the owner wanted a little bit more space there, and then we did want to provide for a second floor laundry room. And you can see the square meters that are allotted approximately for each of those areas. Go to the next slide, please. And never mind the question marks. Again, those are just appearing. Not sure why. It's not part of the design. The location of the laundry room, I just wanted to point out that it's actually within the roof line, so it's not really an element that's adding any massing. And that concludes the presentation.
Very well. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Kieran for this application? I see none, and I don't believe anyone has called in, correct?
Correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. Okay, so if no one has called in, we're ready to take the matter into committee. Go ahead, Ms. Murray, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit, reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town's written staff report, which I note the staff is in support of. And I thank Mr. Kieran for his presentation. I also note that there appear to be no written objections. However, Mr. Kieran has indicated that they've canvassed the neighborhood and find it supportive of the application. I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all 4 tests under the Planning Act, and I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application for the variance subject to the following conditions. And those conditions would be that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the site plan and elevation drawings dated May 11th, 2020, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well, thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? None opposed. Your application has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Kieran.
Thank you. Good night.
Night. Okay, so the application, the last item on our agenda for this evening is CAV 055 of 2020 at 116 Chartwell Road. At this time, if you are listening to the live stream and are interested in the application CAV 055 of 2020 at 116 Chartwell Road, please call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff will be on standby to take your call. and further instructions will be provided to you to join the video conference at that time. Thank you. Who is with us this evening? Mr. Giordano.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Peter Giordano with David Small Designs, 1440 here, Ontario Street. I'm the authorized agent for the subject property.
Very well. Good evening. Have you submitted a presentation that you'd like town staff to upload?
I've presented, or I've given them some images, which I'll call upon through my presentation, if you allow me to. Absolutely. Okay, so we're here today requesting your consideration on 4 variances. One second, you just. Okay. Sorry, it just covered my my speech that I was reading. The subject property is a trapezoidal shaped lot, narrowing towards the rear right corner. As you can see from city mapping, the property sits in the foreground of 126 Chartwell Road. It's surrounded on the right and rear side, while the property to the left is approximately the same length, except it's wide at the front and then narrows along the second half of the property, forcing the house at the front far closer to the street. The house at 134 Chartwell relates to our property in a streetscape perspective with slightly staggering, a staggering presence. These 2 facts are important aspects to our variance request. Can you display image number 6, please? So the home itself is positioned. The required home, the new home is required to be 1 meter forward or back from the location of the existing structure to be demolished. The existing home is set back a distance of 30.24 meters from the front property line. We are requesting the home to be located at 25.59 meters from the front yard setback. This will position the house far better in relation to both exposed neighbors, the neighbors to the left and to the right, excluding the immediate neighbor at 126 Chartwell, as his home sits effectively in the rear yard of 134 Chartwell, the immediate adjacent property to the right. Items number 2 and 3 on the variance list are related. Our client had asked for a privacy wall to be built in the rear right corner of the house. This wall would be best described as a 3/4 high wall, about 6.5 feet high on the pool side and about 8 feet high to grade on the neighbor side, open above by about 5 feet, as you see in the image on the screen, with 2 simple angled metal posts supporting the flat roof. Initially, zoning did not include this screen wall in the overall building length, but after further consideration, they choose to include this privacy wall, creating a variance in the overall building length. The porches are not considered as part of building length, hence, if only the depth of the floor plan and massing were measured, our proposed home would comply in building length at only 19.28 meters long. Can you go to image number 5, please? That's the view from the rear, which shows the low wall, the screen wall to the left side of that wall. Sorry, of the house, the right side of the house. Now that screen wall, it creates a pinch point on the right side. The trapezoidal shape of the property starts to angle, and it comes close to the screen wall, which creates the side yard setback of 3.08 meters. So that's at the very end of the privacy wall. That minimum side yard setback is not taken to the house, it's taken to that side wall. Then if you can go back to image number 1, please. The last variance we're asking for is an increase in garage area. That's the one right there, please. The garage is a 2-car plus 1 with a tandem bay. The increase in size does not impact the massing of the house as it otherwise complies with coverage and the floor area ratio bylaw. Our client worked diligently to approach and attempt to speak to the 9 homes closest to him. He spoke personally to 3 neighbors who were all positive and had no objections. He had email contact with 2 more who also had no objections, and he left 2 letters inviting them to call him but received no follow-up. The neighboring home immediately to the left is empty and will more than likely be for sale soon. But of course, we do have a letter of support from 126 Chartwell, the neighbor immediately to the right and fully encompassing the right side and rear of the subject property. Planning staff have no objections to the application. They explained our situation quite well in their staff comments, and as such, we believe our variance passes the 4 tests of Section 42 of the Planning Act.
Well, are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Giordano? I see none. Okay, and I don't think anyone has called in for this application thus far.
There were no calls up to now.
Okay, Mr. Giordano, if you are satisfied with your submission, we can take this matter into committee.
Certainly.
Okay. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and having listened to the applicant's presentation this evening, also noting that the staff report, written report, does support the application as applied for. I also noted that there's a letter of support from the neighbor to the right. And noting the fact of how this lot is laid out and how it explained within the presentation by the applicant. I would like to move that the application be approved as applied for, finding that it's minor in nature and it does meet the tests of the Planning Act. I would like to include the conditions that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan, revised number 8, dated May 28th, 2020, and the elevation drawings revised number 3, dated May 28th, 2020, and as well as our standard condition that the approval expires 2 years from the date of a decision if a building permit has not been issued.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? The application has been approved. There's no one opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giordano. I suppose staff will let us know when we're off of the, oh no, I still have.
There is a minutes to approve.
Minutes, yes. I have minutes. Okay, so confirmation of the minutes for June 30th. Who would like to move them? Ms. Murray, thank you. And then finally, motion to adjourn. Ms. Murray as well. And we are adjourned at 8:14.